Hello everyone, Markystal here. I've started up the work on a new game, so I'm going to start doing a video, hopefully every week or two, going over the progress that has been made in the development front over that time period and to check the progress that has been made on the development map that's been put up on the blog. Being that this is the first video, I'm going to start off with an introduction to what the game is intended to be so we can all get an idea of what this is going to be moving towards, and end this off with the current progress log. Without further ado, let's talk the game. To sum it up in a sentence, I'm making a role-playing game focused on serving as a project to flesh out a control system I've had in my mind for about 5 years now, and I'm delivering it on the Oculus Rift PC platform within a 6-month development time. Being that I don't expect any particularly good solutions for VR controls to come out anytime soon, partially due to a diminished set of expectations on the front of the investigation in said area in the VR industry, I'm going to make do with what we've got from a release standpoint at this stage, and try something I've had on my mind for a few years now anyway. In truth, to accomplish this, an RPG isn't really all that necessary since a fighting game would suffice. However, due to a lack of experience in the realms of multiplayer development, a lack of a means to deliver on any networking multiplayer anyway, the programming difficulty of making good fighting game AI, and the reality that I'm not expecting VR combat to be something people will be able to handle particularly well in the near term, I'm just going to go with an RPG since I feel that better fits what we can currently do at the moment and my own current abilities. I don't expect to take a particularly long time on this project, so I'm only going to put in 6 months or so I can get in and out in a reasonable amount of time. So, the big 3 goals here are to finish the game within 6 months, fully develop my control system, and to see what VR will do to a genre with such a very well-established set of tropes like an RPG. If the schedule starts to slip, features may have to be cut. If the control system needs more work, I will do more work at the cost of other features. And if people freak out when faced with a VR slime, well, that's just going to be more knowledge to add to the future of VR best practices guide pot now, won't it? This is not a big game, so making sure these goals are accomplished are my top priority. Save for my combat system, this thing is probably going to be generic to the extreme. I'll be avoiding creativity simply due to a lack of time. I can't afford to spend a lot of time thinking up a ton of creative, highly unique world ideas here, simply because it won't hold up to the project's time period allotment. Either way, I strongly believe that execution is king in all arts. No matter how good an idea sounds on paper, if it isn't executed upon properly, you just won't be able to enjoy it till its full potential. Well, that should make things clear as to what's being done. Time to move on to the development log. I officially started off the work on this project at the beginning of October, so we're about a week into development. In that time, a prototype testing out some of the core ideas that are needed for the control system have been tested and are working. The left half of the controller, the locomotion half, is able to manipulate the player character in a manner reminiscent to what the control system calls for, in either the default or lock state. Pressing forward or back on the left analog stick results in the player moving forward or back on their Z-axis. Horizontal pressing of the analog stick will result in the player turning left or right when in the default state, and translating left or right when in the lock-on state. To switch between the default and lock-on state, the player only has to click in on the left analog stick, or press the left bumper or L3 depending on which controller you're using, in order to switch between both states. Upon doing so, the player's body will be locked onto a central point that is established by going from the center of the player's field of view to the very first object that falls within that point. On the interaction half of the controller, functionality is already being demonstrated, though it also has its issues. The right analog stick can easily be made to control the testing right arm created for the purposes of the demo. Vertical motions produce vertical motions, horizontals do likewise. The main issue is in the form of jittery motion. This is likely the result of going for a one-to-one mapping using the right analog stick float axis values to alter the rotational axis values directly, rather than using a more typical rotation input method. Going forward, it might be more advisable for me to figure out a mechanism that uses the direction input as a means of telling the arm how much to rotate or what position to move towards, rather than as a direct data input means. Problematically, since I've used this for the joint controls that the triggers are responsible for as well, this has resulted in clipping issues due to the incredibly high speeds and teleportation-like movements of the operations. Despite the issues my poor scripting methodology has made, the necessary functions seem to be working, and I'm actually getting a hint of what the final product should feel like as a result of the experiments. The liberty that being able to move and attack, both with equal versatility, provides is engaging and should provide for some interesting combat experiences when it gets better fleshed out. The moment an enemy was generated with the physics and the ability to sustain damage, I personally found the demo gaining a semblance of fun, if only for the interesting results of watching the physics behave with a teleporting rotating arm. Thus, the prototype was done at this point. The foundations for everything are in place, and I've demonstrated more or less that the game is buildable, and the control systems can feel somewhat good, if only to me at this stage. Next on the agenda is the design work for the assets. I'll be tweeting out sketches and the like over the next week or so. I've already started work on a female character design. I should hopefully have a few more sketches for the monster suit as well. By the end of this week, design work should be done and I'll begin modeling on the main character, so I can get started with the controls and animation. They're really important, so if I can finish up the design work early, I'll definitely do so. Well then everyone, that should just about do it for this video. Expect more on this in the future since it's going to be the next 6 months or so of me working on this. I can't speak for whether or not there'll be any content releases prior to the game's release, though I can say I'm interested in creating a demo of some kind upon launch, just so anyone who's interested can try it and see if it's for them before buying. Actually, I probably should have mentioned that too. This will actually end up being a digitally released product. I can't specify a price at this point since I'm honestly not sure how much I should charge. I probably won't be able to come up with a good decision on that matter until the game is finished and is in a shippable state. If I end up having to cut a ton of features, I'll keep the price accordingly low, but if I think I got something great, the price will go up, of course. I can say at the very least that I won't be charging more than $20 under any circumstances. Even if the game turns out to be so awesome it earns 2016's Game of the Year or something, I won't change to more than $20 for it. There just isn't enough there, even on paper, for me to want to charge that much for it. Likewise, no matter how bad it turns out, I won't charge anything less than $2 for it. Heck, if it's so bad I don't even feel like charging $2, I'd probably just pass on releasing it entirely and just save myself the embarrassment. Well everyone, that's just enough on the whole future stuff. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done on it right now. I've got to get back to those design drawings, so thank you very much for watching the video. This has been MarkystalVR, logging out.